Hello, I'd like to welcome you to this virtual session for SAS Global Forum 2020, Modernize Your SAS Visual Analytics Environment. My name is Gregor Herrmann and I'm working for the Global Technology Practice. Let's first have a look on what I have prepared for you. First of all, we want to have a look at how to promote content from a SAS 9 system, a Visual Analytics 7.x release probably, to SAS Visual Analytics 8.5 on SAS Vaya. In the second part, we are having a quick look on how the promotion from within one system on SAS Vaya to another system on SAS Vaya would look like. And the third part covers the promotion of other objects from SAS 9 and a small outlook on what R&D is currently working for. Let's get started. Before you promote content from SAS 9 to a SAS Vaya system, you should consider the following topics. First of all, check your hardware and your software requirements. Of course, it is possible to use the same software to run your SAS Vaya environment than you are currently using for your SAS 9 environment. There are no major changes in hardware requirements. From a software perspective, you can run SAS Vaya systems on the Linux platform or on the Windows platform. With regards to viewing visual analytics reports on the browser, there is a significant change. As you might already know, we are moving from the Flash technology to HTML5. This has some consequences. One consequence, for example, is that we are no longer supporting Internet Explorer 11 to view visual analytics reports. The reason for that is that Internet Explorer 11 has not been designed to run HTML5 applications. So make sure you have one of the supported browsers available, the likes like Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or Firefox or Safari if you're running on a Mac. If you have a significant or large environment to convert from Visual Analytics 7 to Visual Analytics 8, you might consider running two versions of Visual Analytics in parallel for a limited time. This gives you, of course, more time to move the content over and allows you to do it in smaller chunks. For example, you are converting some of the reports to the new version, and then you have time to check if everything is working as expected, where the majority of your reports are still running on your Visual Analytics SAS 9 environment. There is also something to consider with regards to viewing reports. If your information consumers are already using a Windows 10 laptop or desktop, then you should consider using the Visual Analytics app for report viewing as well. I strongly recommend that you have a look at it because it allows the information consumers to view the reports or to get their results more quickly because of the fact that this Visual Analytics app does not have the need to download the HTML5 components before it renders the report. This results in significant reduced first time to view the report or time needed to view the report for the first time. One more thing that is not on the slide here that I should mention, if you move reports from Visual Analytics 7.x to Visual Analytics 8.5, also consider the capability gap of the two versions. It might be more efficient to create some reports from scratch in the new system because we have provided a large amount of new capabilities in recent releases in Visual Analytics 8. So be aware of the capability gap between the two versions. This might have consequences for your reports as well. First of all, you should look at your inventory and what you have currently in stock. What content types do you have to convert? Are there reports, explorations? Are you using custom themes? Do you use data preparation jobs or custom graphs in your report? What's also important is knowing the size of your inventory. So are we talking about 15 reports or are we talking about several hundred reports? You can also compare different environments, for example, a dev environment versus a prod environment. R&D has developed a tool in recent years to support you in assessing your content. And let's have a quick look at the screenshot. The name of the tool is the SAS Content Assessment Tool. What it actually does, it runs a job in your existing SAS 9 environment and gathers all the necessary metadata information to provide, as a result, a very detailed report of your inventory. We are currently looking at the cube and infomap details inventory. It shows you that your current system or the system that we are currently looking at has more than 1,000 information maps, some 115 OLAP cubes, and a large amount of relational expressions and OLAP measures. There are much more details in this report. Of course, this is only a screenshot of one part. You would also see, of course, visual analytics reports and what's being used within those reports as well. I strongly recommend to get in contact with your SAS representative if you are interested in running this content assessment tool in your environment to get a better view of how you can move to SAS Vaya. There are some things to consider as well. There are objects that are not being promoted. First and foremost, I have to mention the data. So data has to be loaded to the target system before you do the promotion job. This is of course not very difficult, but you have to be aware of. There are other things that have to be done in advance as well. For example, if your data are using custom formats, you have to load them to the Vaya system as well. You might have been using custom themes to customize the layout of your reports in Visual Analytics 7. These custom themes have been created in the Flash world. Flash is no longer available in Visual Analytics on SAS Vaya. So you have to recreate your custom themes with the new HTML5 theme builder on SAS Vaya. You can do that also before you move the reports to the target system. Two more objects that are not part of the promotion process are Visual Data Builder jobs and Visual Statistic projects. Visual Statistics projects especially, they are coming from a very early release of Visual Analytics. You can first promote them to explorations of a Visual Analytics 7 release, and then they are eligible for promotion to Visual Analytics on SAS Vaya as well. How does the execution of the promotion actually looks like? So if you're promoting from a SAS 9 system, you first have to create your export package, namely the SPK file, either in SAS Management Console or via the batch export utility. There are some changes with regards to authentication in SAS Vaya. Therefore, there is something that you have to consider before you before you export the packages. If you also want to, or if you want your authorization to be part of the promotion as well, you have to make sure that on the new system, all the users and all the groups that you are using to um, define authorization settings for specific objects, they must already be present on the target system. This is something that you can check by create mapping files for, or by create export packages for users, and then check on the target system if all those users and groups are already present. Once you have create your export package, your SPK file, you can open the package file in the import window of SAS Environment Manager. If your target files do not have exactly the same names, for example, or your CAS libraries have different names on the target system than the original SAS libraries or laser libraries had on the source system, then you might have to adjust the mappings if needed. You can also import the package using a so-called command line interface on SAS Vaya. During the import, when you do it in Environment Manager, you can also decide to save a mapping file that for later usage. You can then use this um, mapping file when you do a batch import for more reports or other packages. If you're promoting within SAS Vaya, it looks pretty similar, except the fact that we no longer use SPK files as the package format. We are now creating .json files. These can be created in SAS Environment Manager or via batch export. I should mention that if you're, let's say, if you're updating your SAS Vaya environment in place, of course, there is no promotion necessary. But maybe you do a new installation on another machine, or you have done a backup and you want to do a clean install of a new version, then you have to create your content, or you have to export your content in a JSON file. That content on the new system can be imported again using the same mechanisms, either SAS Environment Manager or the command line interface. In this case, mapping files might not be needed because you might have exactly the same structure on the target system that you had already on your source system in SAS Vaya, but you can nevertheless use them to modify target data sources, for example, if necessary. Let's have a look at promotion of other objects. Lots of our customers are still using SAS Enterprise BI Server. One important object that is being used in, for example, in Web Report Studio reports within SAS Enterprise BI Server are OLAP cubes. OLAP cubes are a multi-dimensional data structure that allows you accessing data on different hierarchy levels without recalculating everything on the fly. OLAP cubes are no longer available within SAS Vaya. Nevertheless, we are able to visualize in cross-tabulations similar reports that we had in Web Report Studio now in Visual Analytics, because Visual Analytics also knows the concept of hierarchies, and the computing power of the in-memory technology allows us to calculate those different hierarchies and the numbers related to them on the fly. So it's if you are still using those OLAP queues in SAS 9, you might be interested in converting them because it's now possible. OLAP cubes will be converted to Visual Analytics data views. Those cubes can be either based on detail tables or star schemas. The initial support is restricted to 11 most popular MDX functions, and more are being discussed. R&D has looked at a couple of big customer environments to decide which MDX functions are favorites or are um, most being used at our customer sites. Again, the SAS content assessment can support you in checking the eligibility of the cubes for promotion, because you'll get a detailed report on which MDX functions are being used. This is a screenshot of the first import step when you're importing a package that contains an OLAP cube. You currently see that this is the cube, and we have a couple of tables. In this case, we are importing an OLAP cube that's based on a star schema, which has an order fact table and a couple of dimension tables. Another object that has been used in SAS 9 are SAS information maps. SAS information maps in SAS 9 have been representing the business metadata layer for report authors. R&D has also looked at converting SAS information maps. The development work is currently restricted to relational information maps, meaning information maps whose target or whose data structure behind it are relational tables. Information maps will be converted to SAS jobs in SAS Vaya. After you have imported the information map the SAS job needs to run, it creates a cast table and a visual analytics data view. So the visual analytics data view especially contains, for example, the calculations that are being made within the information map. Another important object to look at are stored processes. Stored processes are no longer available in SAS Vaya, but there is something that can replace the function of a stored process. Stored processes are being converted to jobs in the SAS job execution framework. This is currently available, or this is already available in the current release. They can be executed using the SAS job execution web application. Currently, they are not out of the box usable within Visual Analytics, but development is underway to make this capability available. It will be available in a SAS Visual Analytics release later this year. So let's do a short summary. First of all, make sure you have completed all your preliminary tasks. Secondly, review your inventory and do it with a focus on redesign. I'm strongly recommending this, and it requires a good knowledge of the capabilities of the most current version of SAS Visual Analytics. Of course, this also depends on the fact or on the version of Visual Analytics that you are currently using. But if you are using an earlier version, or the earlier version you use, the bigger the capability gap is. Last not least, if you are still running SAS Enterprise BI Server, check out the new promotion capabilities, meaning promotion of OLAP cubes, promotion of information maps. R&D will not stop working on those promotion capabilities. They are also currently looking into converting the first Web Report Studio reports into SAS Visual Analytics. So stay tuned and think about replacing SAS Enterprise BI Server with Visual Analytics. That's all from my side. If you want to contact me, write me an email. Thank you.